What is going on, boys and girls of YouTube? Today we're bringing you that warding guide that I promised. I know I've had a bunch of questions the last few days. I had someone in my chat last night asking where it was. But here it is. It's done. It's here for you. Now the goal of this is so you know where, when, why, how, who to ward. You know, all the roles, everything covered from jungle to support to mid to ADC to solo. I want you to know where to ward, why you're warding there, how to kind of make up for bad teammates that aren't warding, and just overall get an advantage. Because right now in Smite, the bad teams, the worst teams, the teams that are losing tend to be the ones that don't ward. Warding is just way too valuable on the current map, especially with the way rotations work. So that's something we have to talk about. That's something we have to deal with. And with that said, we're going to go ahead and jump right on into the game. And I'm just running around going to show you guys where to ward. So kind of ignore what's going on the map. It's just a little bot lobby real quick. As a jungler, that's what we want to cover first, because jungle warding is one of the most impactful outside of supports. So as a jungler, you really have the ability to ward anywhere deep on this side of the map. So essentially, here's the line you're warding above that ward. So we will look for wards in this general area, because these wards will show anytime you do speed or rotate out, anytime you cross underneath the tier 2 and path over this way. So that will give you a lot of vision on where the jungler is headed. That is how you keep your teammates from being ganked. Now, on top of that, a solid ward is dropping one over the wall in this area. It's a lot safer than walking all the way back here. So with a ward over the wall, you literally can just walk up and boom, drop your ward over the wall. You have that vision for any rotations going this way. You also see anytime the jungler clears these back camps. Having that knowledge lets you know basically what's going to happen, because the jungler is either going to path left out of this or right out of this. If he goes right, hey, solo laner, back off. If you pass mid, hey, mid laner, back off. Understand? Boom, easy. So same thing for the red. You basically look at the red the same way you look at these back camps. You can always ward over the wall. Boom, free ward, free vision. Anytime the jungler helps with red or crosses through here to gank the duo, you will see that. Now, just like on the right side, you have this area, which will give you anytime a jungler crosses through here to gank the duo. Now, the biggest thing with junglers is it's very rare for a jungler to run out of base, clear these camps, and go for a gank. And that's because this is usually cleared by a good support. This is usually cleared by a good mid or a good support. So everything gets dropped here, and the jungler very rarely has farm on this side of the map. That is why junglers tend to not gank the duo lane very often right now. Most jungle ganks in the duo lane happen early or happen after crossing between the towers, grabbing whatever XP is over here, and looking for a side gank. So all that vision can be covered here and here. Now, if you tend to get a ward in one of these areas, you do not need to drop another ward on the other side. We don't need this ward if this ward is here, okay? So if you have one or the other, then that's where you look at warding the backs, looks at warding the red buff, or you can be even more aggressive with your wards or just more defensive for your teammates, and you can ward over here with the purple buff, or you could ward in these general areas to see any crossing through for ganks. So you end up cutting off all of the enemy junglers' ganks is essentially what you're doing with this time. Now, certain gods might gank differently. If they have a Thor or someone with a, that semi-global ult, I might ward gold or I might ward fire as my secondary ward position to stop those ganks. And then on the opposite side, if there's a Mercury, I would usually, if possible, it's a little bit harder to ward. You got to go out of your way a lot of times. So if you don't gank the duo lane, you're unlikely to get these wards up. But if there's a Mercury, I will drop a ward over in this area. My wards will go right in here. And because of this ward, it'll stop the Mercury from being able to ult up the lane and get a free gank. So there's your overall warding guide, warding position as a jungler. Here is your map. This looks very weird having it in the middle of my screen. Jungle wards. Like I said, you want to cut off one of these two areas, right? If we have this ward here, then we tend to want to ward in this area. You can ward in this area, or you can ward in one of these areas. All of this will cut off some form of jungle gank. Now, if you're doing this, it opens up your side lanes to drop one ward here or one ward here, and everything's covered. You will know where the jungler is at all times. If you know where the jungler is always, you will never, ever get ganked. The game will be so easy. So as a jungler, you're kind of the starting point to make sure the base knowledge is there for where the jungler's at. And then your team fills in the gaps. Now you are able to ward deep. You can ward back here. You can ward speed buff. You tend to only do this if you have a massive lead, you're snowballing, and you want to try to kill or catch them at bat camps to just keep your pressure up. So that's like extended warding. Ideally, this line is your line for warding, and it's that simple. That is your line for warding. You want to stick to that and cover that as best as possible. So that was all as a jungler. That was jungle warding. Now we're going to cover mid lane warding. Most of your mid lane, time in the game as a mid laner is spent in and around this lane and trying to path left or right out of your lane into the jungle safely. Now to make sure you can do that, you're going to need to cover the pretty core points. So you're either warding right here to cut off this entire entrance, because this ward will allow you to safely clear from back in this general area and react before the jungler gets to you. Now, if the jungler realizes where you're warding or is pathing differently, he will be able to loop around the ward safely through here, and it makes this a lot more scary, right? So this is the ward you see the most by far. This is easily the ward I see the most. It ends up being a pretty unnecessary ward is how I would describe it. Because if you're clearing the lane, you should always be clearing away from the side you think the jungler's on, right? So if I think he's in right, I'm clearing around this left side. I have time to react as soon as he comes around this turn, right? Even if he blinks on me, I can just portal away as a Janus. If I'm anyone else, I can dash to my tower, right? So having a ward that is either a little bit deeper to give you more information, or just a little bit shorter to give you this information of anyone crossing through here. So wards in this general area tend to be pretty valuable because they're going to go up the side here, and they're actually going to cover a good amount of this. I'm going to clear that ward real fast just to show you guys the vision. So you can see it goes up a little bit here, and it goes up a little bit here. You can actually drop it closer to the wall and it'll carry over, or even drop it right in this spot and it will carry over into these sides. That is going to be your best warding spot on both sides of the lane, because that's going to give you anyone trying to loop underneath of you. Now this side of the map is a little bit different. You could ward here and you're going to see anyone pathing in this way. It's kind of unnecessary. You want to cover this triangle with your ward. You want to drop the ward in this general area. If you're doing that as a mid, that is giving your team full knowledge of any rotations going this way or going that way. Your jungler should be covering these two general areas deeper. So this whole quadrant of the map is then covered for jungle rotations. It also allows you to safely path under. If you know someone's in this general area, no one's walked in on these mids, then you can path here pretty safely, right? You have all this covered. Now this gets a little bit scarier when you're around the objectives, but that's not your job to cover. That is more of a support job, which we'll talk about in a minute. Same for this side of the map. If you know no one's pathed in here, pretty safe to hug the wall and path in or even rotate across the bottom line. This is going to increase your rotation speeds. If you don't have those wards and you're warding elsewhere, you will have to safely path. You would have to walk literally all the way back around your tier 2 tower and come across this bottom line, which is just way too deep. It's the smarter, safer thing to do without vision. But if you just give yourself vision, then you're able to cover and, able to cover the map and kind of play how you need to play and position and move how you want to move. Those are the key wards as a mid. Like that's it. If you can cover those and your support doesn't have to cover those, you have so much more potential to have the rest of the map just lit up like a Christmas tree with your teammates warding, because your duo is going to cover most of this side and your solo is going to cover most of the other side. So this gives you a lot of vision control on the map, and that's it as a mid. That's the main thing you have to ward. Now, if the game is shifting up, I talked about last as a jungler kind of warding these two areas and maybe even deeper. Your wards kind of shift deeper as you start to aggress on the map and start to push towers. So if this tier 1 was gone, we would then shift our wards into the deeper parts of the jungle, where in this general area. These wards are still valuable, obviously, but if we know where they are deeper and your jungler is warding deeper, you can shift your wards up. Now you could ward in these two areas if the jungler is not warding, so we would walk up and we would get our wards right in here if your jungle is not warding, right? If your jungle is warding these areas, you can put them even deeper. You can literally ward the exit for this. That will show exactly where the whole team is. Now that's once you have a lot of map pressure. A lot of the time it's still going to be focused on these general areas, Very rarely as a mid do you start warding other locations unless it's to counter ward an objective or something. Now this has to be known. This is the base area for you to ward. That does not mean you never ward objectives. You know, your team needs help. You will start counter warding objectives. It's okay to let a side ward fall. So say you want to go for the Gold Fury. You don't need this ward if you want to go for the Gold Fury, correct? You want to have this area covered, and then you want to help your team with objective vision, whether that is counter warding the gold for your team, whether that's getting a ward up higher, whether that's warding over here for any rotations, or even a defensive ward underneath, which would be in this location. Because if you have this warded, so we don't need this warded. We have this warded, right? We have this counter warded. We have a ward above this pillar, and we have this warded. Then we have this whole side of the map covered. Then one other ward over here would cover the life. It would cover everything. We would have every bit of knowledge. Now that is a general concept for you when taking an objective. Your wards will shift and change because you don't need to cover the whole map. So normal map vision, laning vision, and then we have objective vision. Now, same thing on the flip side. If we are looking at pulling the fire giant or doing the fire giant, you're going to want to have this area warded for your team right in here. And then your secondary ward could be the counter that's on fire. It could be a deep ward that is up here. It could be a deep ward that is in this general area. It could even be a ward behind the wall to make sure no one tries to steal it. That vision is all valuable. All 5 of you can cover that vision. It doesn't have to be the mid laner doing that. That is just generic objective pulling vision, okay? So as a mid laner, remember, we want to cover this general area. Wards right in here. So we cover from left to right. Same on the other side, except for we want to really cover this little bit of a triangle, essentially. So we know anyone's rotating this way. We know anyone's rotating in. We know anyone's rotating into mid camps. We have everything covered for our team and the general rotations out of mid. And then as a mid laner, you will be rotating a lot left and right. So it will also make your rotations simpler. So that is your mid lane warding. To reiterate everything, make sure it's understood. You will ward here. You will ward here. These are your 2 key points as a mid laner. If you're looking at objectives, if you're pulling gold, you will not worry about having this ward. You will want to maintain this ward and a secondary ward that counters gold or wards high. If your team starts pushing into this tower, the tier 1 is gone. Your team has moved all their wards up. All wards will shift. If you are continuing to aggress, you will start to cover this area, this area, this area, this area. It will give you a lot of knowledge about playing up in the mid lane. This should be a very rare thing that happens though. It is very unlikely your wards will shift up like this because even once you take the tower, a lot of the time you are not crossing this general line that we talked about as a jungler. So you will maintain your wards aggressively along that line for your mid laner. So we've covered mid, we've covered jungle. Now we're going to talk about support. This is one of the closest roles to the jungle right now because of your pathing, your rotating, your movement, where you are grabbing vision. It is the closest to jungling. Now, in your first few minutes of the game, your standard poop ward, your starting ward that you get, you'll end up placing it in these general areas. You'll cover here to see any jungle rotations coming through here. Most junglers will path through here because it is the fastest points to get there. It is very, very common, right? So if we're attacking this tower, what we'll do is anytime we get wave pressure, and if you're playing an aggressive god, it'll be a lot easier. Anytime you out clear them or out poke them, you'll run over and you'll get a quick ward and you'll drop it in this general area. That will cover everything we need to know coming in through here. Your ADC, we'll talk about, will tend to ward in this general area. If your ADC covers there, you can cover here. It's 100% up to you which one of you two want to cover this. This will eliminate all pathing in for the ganks. The only pass you'd have to worry about would be deep pass. And I'm going to be honest, if your mid is warding and your jungle is warding, there is a 0% chance that the jungler walks into this jungle and you don't already know he's there. So you wouldn't even be playing aggressive anyway, and you won't have to worry about it. So these are going to be 2 early starting wards. Now, as soon as you hit level 4, level 5, you start rotating. You don't spend all your time in one lane. This is where you start to become a very, very valuable member of your team because that allows for you to get that aggressive wards that we were talking about. We talked about having the jungler ward in this general area or on camps. you can cover the opposite or you can cover the other angles. So if your jungle's warding in here, you can always ward back in this general area. You can ward here and cover this whole path, which is a ridiculously good ward to have for any early vision. If you're able to get that ward up as a normal ward and it's going to last the entire duration, your team is set. They're golden, okay? This ward is a lot easier to obtain because the jungler spends a lot of time farming this right side of the map. He does not spend a lot of time over here. So this ward's actually a fairly easy and safe ward to get up while rotating over to the mid lane. Now, anytime you rotate into the mid lane, you go for whatever kills, or say you back to base and you run up into the solo lane, you can become a very valuable member of the team for your solo laner. Similar to the jungle, if your jungle is covering a deep ward over here, because this is a very easy place to ward for your jungler because he spends a lot of time on this side of the map, you might end up warding in this general area. You start warding in this general area, you cover this anytime they pull this, you cover any rotations that come through this general direction, and you basically are allowing your team to have ample reaction time. Oh, there's someone here, let me back out of the solo lane. Oh, there's someone running up this side of the map. Maybe I need to not play aggressive on this left side of the map. And you can keep doing that over and over again. Now, that's when you're able to be aggressive. The other wards we talked about as a jungler, you should always be able to get up. The wards we talked about as a mid, you should always be able to get up. If your team is being pressured really hard, like for some reason you just cannot get to their side of the map, that is where you shift to a defensive player. You want to keep your team alive and you want to keep them kicking. Now, this will shift all your wards from being hyper aggressive wards or just semi-defensive for your dual lane. This ward can also be a ward you keep up all the time. This dual lane ward is a valuable ward for your dual lane at all times. So if you're just trying to keep your dual lane alive, this is a very, very valuable place to ward. You can literally place your ward right here. It'll cover this. It'll cover this. Keeps your ADC alive. That'll be a semi-aggressive but defensive ward for your ADC. That'll, be opposite of these super deep wards if you can't get them up. Now, like I said, if you're being pressured very hard, you can start warding defensively for your team. You can start warding in this general area, right? It'll keep your mid alive, essentially, as long as they're reacting quickly. Do the same thing on the opposite side. This ward's a lot easier. It's very easy to cover this vision and the distance you need to cover. On this side, it becomes a little bit different. If you place a ward here, it's a little too defensive. It will get their junglers a lot that are coming in here, or even their supports. And a lot of people will hug this wall when they're looking for a gank. So this is a valuable ward. This ward will do the same thing. This ward will show you what's going on right here. It will also show you anyone pathing in through this area and even pulling the mid camps. So this will be the general ward you want to place down right on this spot. Super, super easy. I'm trying to separate information here. Like as a Janus, I talked about doing objective warding for the whole team. Those wards were all relevant to every role, right? I want to talk about counter warding now while we're talking about supports. Counter warding becomes something you're looking more at doing after at higher tier games around the 12-minute mark, maybe even like 8 to 12 minutes is when you start. In your higher or lower end games where you're laning till 20 minutes. You won't really start counter warding until that 14, 15, 16 minute mark. This will be good for you as a support because it allows you to get more items online. And this kind of goes the same for every role. You'll start counter warding and you'll counter ward for your pathing. So this area in the 14, 15 minute mark will be somewhere you counter ward to make sure they have no vision. Same thing on this side. You would counter ward so they have no vision. That makes your rotations from left to right super easy and a lot cleaner because they don't know you're there. They don't know you're coming. They don't know what's going on. Now, if you see them warding other spots, you physically see the wards going down, or they're counter warding another spot, that's perfectly fine for you to go counter ward. If they're counter warding your ward here, come on up, drop your counter ward, clear the area. Once you have a lead, it is very easy to pressure with counter wards. A team that is losing or behind in gold does not want to spend a lot of gold on counter wards. A team that is winning has no problem dropping counter wards down because they got extra gold. So it's easy to get map control when you have a lead. It is not as easy to get map control when you do not have a lead. But being the person counter warding in a match against a team that's not counter warding is insanely valuable. The only other places you will really counter ward as a support, are not gonna be around the mid lane. They will be your objectives. You will make sure to always have vision of your Gold Fury and always have vision of your Fire Giant. Objective vision is very, very important. Once you start to aggress into the game, you start getting towers, you start pressuring out, your wards don't really change very much. You still look for either those deep wards that we talked about, keeping your objectives cleared, counter warding fire right here, counter warding gold, counter warding whatever objective you're going to play around, or just counter warding to remove their vision. Those are all your options, and all of them are good and safe and smart. So as a support, defensive wards early here or here to keep your ADC alive. If your ADC is warding somewhere else, if they're covering this one, you'll cover this one. If they're covering this one, you'll cover this one. This can carry into the late game, the mid game. You can keep warding these areas so your ADC is not getting ganked if you feel you need to protect him. Now, if you're able to rotate aggressively, get your deep wards up. Ward here. You can ward red buff. Very simple wards. On this right side of the map, warding deep in this general area for your solo will be super valuable for him. This allows you to be aggressive as well as a support. You can start looking for their back camps that they aren't farming, especially once you pick up Jimmy. If you have Jimmy, you clear jungle buffs very, very quickly, and you become a monster at invading camps because you have nothing else to do anyway. You're a support. If you're warding defensively, remember counter wards here, very valuable. If your team is losing or very outpressured, regular wards here or here to keep your mid alive if he is not warding. Those will be your core wards. So you're looking at kind of 1, 2, 3 as your, super safe wards, and then your aggressive wards, boom, red. And then over here are going to be your 3 on this side. And then you are the counter warder. Keep the objectives cleared of wards with your counter wards. That is your job. Your team will be helping, obviously, because that's part of their job. But you need to make sure that you have vision of this all the time. You always want vision of this. If you can't afford counter wards, having a regular ward there to make sure they can't pull it is also valuable. So aggressive wards for the first couple minutes. Once objectives start to be important, those are going to be warded. Those will be warded as much as humanly possible. And that's support warding. It's that simple. It's really not that intense. All right, guys, we're covering the solo lane next. We've done supports, we've done mid, we've done jungle. We've got solo lane, and we've got ADC left. Solo lane is very, very easy. Early game, covering this general area is very, very important. Your junglers are likely going to do blue and come for ganks through this angle, or they're blue's not up. Whenever blue's not up, they're going to look for pathing. They'll clear those backs and they'll look for rotations through here. They'll decide whether they want to come in for a gank this way or that way. So a ward in this spot will become super valuable for you because it will cover all the way to here. You can see them if they path through here, and you can also see them if they path through here. So it gives you a fairly large amount of vision. You can see on the mini map, it covers a lot of vision. This ward, super, super important for the early game. Now, if there's a lot of rotations or you are just being spam ganked from different angles, that will be your one defensive ward that should give you enough time to react and back off. Or aggressive defensive ward. And then you can put up a true defensive ward if you really, really want to. It'll be in this general area. It'll cover the path in through here. It'll cover the path in through here. You can see there's lots of vision. You don't quite get all the way down along this wall, but it's pretty dang close. You can shift it over a little bit more. You can actually put it right in between this opening, and it should give you enough vision to see anyone walking over this and see anyone trying to squeak by through here. It'll give you, like, very rarely do people hug the wall when ganking and be super worried about a ward. So that'll be a hyper defensive ward. Those will be your 2 wards. This one being more core and something you have up as much as possible. This one only going up once you're being spam ganked. Then once you start rotating and shifting, or if you start trying to proxy, you're clearing safely here and you're looking for farm, wards in this general area will become super valuable. A ward right here will cover all the way to the wall, and then it will cover all the way to the wall over here. It'll basically make it so nobody can pass through this general area to get to you. If you're proxying, it gives you time to run out and leave. If you are looking for invades, it gives you knowledge of the camps and whether you can start looking for them and start invading. You'll know what's up, and you can keep your timers based off of that. This will be the other core ward for you. Warding in this general area will be valuable too if the jungler is not. So this is a good ward for you defensively for when the jungler isn't being aggressive with his wards. And if the jungler is covering a lot of this vision and you don't have to worry about it, that's when you can start throwing deep wards. You can start covering this general area, and you can do it off a proxy. You would come up deep here, you would throw your ward over there, and then you would clear the wave super deep and then try to leave. Really only look at doing this on hyper safe gods or gods where you already are just so far ahead, or games where you're so far ahead that you can't die. It becomes really good for you to proxy, clear, and then just become impactful on the rest of the map. Look for your mid rotations. Now your counter wards, once you get in the later game, very unlikely you're ever counter warding where we first showed. You're never going to be counter warding in here. It's just not going to be happening. I've never seen it happen this season. You're not really going to need to counter ward anywhere in this area because it'll all be covered by regular wards and they won't be countering that as well. You can start actually counter warding aggressively on rotations. So anytime you rotate into the mid lane, you can counter ward in here to clear any defensive vision that they have. Or if your team is setting up for objectives, you would then become a counter warder just for your team. You would counter ward in this general area. If your team is not counter warding there, you would counter ward objectives and you would counter ward up along this line. As a solo laner, I will tell you now, it is very rare that you buy a lot of counter wards. It is just unnecessary. It doesn't provide a lot of value to you and the job you do. You end up just using regular wards, warding where we just talked about, and throwing the rest of your gold into your actives, into your items, because you want to hit that full build and be online before everyone else, so you can run at them, be super tanky, and kill them before they get to their full build, which is a little bit more expensive. And if they've been buying wards, they're that much farther behind. It becomes very valuable for you. So counter wards, a lot less common for you as a solo laner, and warding for you as a solo laner is super, super basic. It's really not that complicated. You shouldn't be getting ganked ever, because if you're dropping the ward that we just talked about, if you're dropping a ward in this general area, you shouldn't be able to get ganked. So if you're getting ganked, that's on you and is easily avoidable. Very, very easily avoidable. So we'll talk about these wards again. Here is your map. As a solo laner, you will ward right here where we talked about, where we're standing. This ward right here will cover from there to there. It'll stop those ganks from running straight in and getting you. If they are pathing deep, we will be warding in this general area. This will cover underneath. This will cover along to the fire giant. So that'll be right here. It'll cover everything you need here, give you enough vision. And then aggressively, like we talked about, this ward covers everything in this general area. And then if the jungler has all this covered, anytime you proxy and you get super deep, you can start dropping the wards at their speed. That will allow for invades. Anytime you're a solo laner and you are clearing your wave and able to run into their jungle and start taking farm, you win the game for your team. You win the game for your jungler. You make everything 1,000 times easier. Anytime you're invading speed buff, it should mean your team has all control of the map. So those wards will allow you to do that. And that's warding as a solo laner. It's that easy. It's that basic. And you really don't have to think too much of it. All right, so for the ADC, our final role, we covered the other four. We talked about warding around objectives. We talked about what timing and when to start buying counter wards and what you're going to be doing with those counter wards. Before I get deep into the hunter role, those counter wards are things that I think people overthink. You're essentially warding where you would ward if you were in their shoes with a counter ward to get rid of their vision. So if you're them, I become their ADC. I'm attacking this way. Where am I warding? Oh, I'm warding deep. Oh, I'm warding here. And you're just going to go counter ward those spots. It's that easy. So as an ADC, we talked about warding with the support. The support's going to cover one of these areas here or here, and you're going to cover the other one. That easy. Boom. This vision is more for aggression around the purple buff after that first, 4 levels. Junglers are very rarely going to gank from here. It is very rare a jungler pass through here. You mainly do this so you know if the purple buff, you know if it's up, you know if the other team's doing it. That's for yourself. Now, if you're worried about dying, this is going to be the ward you want to cover. You want to have these wards up all the time. This ward could actually be moved up a little bit farther to right here, and it will cover all the way to the wall. It will cover all the way over to this wall. So this will be the ward you'll want to place. It's a little bit farther in between. That's kind of what you want to do with your wards. You want to make sure you're covering as much area as possible that could potentially be pathed over. So this will cover this area. And your secondary ward, realistically, like I said, you don't need this purple ward. This is if you're looking to be aggressive or you want aggressive information. Your defensive ward, just throw it back along this line. Put it in here. If you're putting it right here, it stops a rotation from through along this side. And it also stops your rotations through here as a jungler. So it'll basically make it so you can't be ganked. If you have a ward up there and you have a ward right here, you won't get ganked. It's not possible unless you're just not paying any attention at all or you've already dove. The only time you should get ganked is if you've dove and overcommitted and you just didn't kill the guy in time, which means you took a bad fight. So that's 100% on you and avoidable, right?
Anonymous tipped $12.59.
Oh, that was random.
Anonymous bought 8,000 gems from.
Oh, well, whoever just used my link on nexus.gg, thank you. I didn't plan that. So those are the 2 wards. These are going to be your most important wards all the time. Straight up. Once you get into the super late game, once the laning phase is over, for a lot of you guys, like I talked about, that's between it's around 16 minutes, 17, 18 minutes, maybe even later, sometimes 20 minutes. Then your wards can start to shift a little bit differently. It's mainly turning into counter warding the objective because you can solo gold by yourself. So having vision here and aggressive vision up here will help with you doing that. But realistically, as an ADC, boom. And boom. It's probably like solo and ADC's warding is super, super basic and very easy. It is not hard to hold 2 wards up at all times. You have a regular free ward that, yeah, it drops and isn't up the full time, but it's up over and over and over again. You can keep dropping these. And then regular wards are going to last forever. So buy some regular wards, boom and boom. You don't get ganked. That saves you a lot of gold. It gains you a lot of farm, and it just buys you a lot of time. Versus not warding, dying once or twice, losing way more farm. You have to realize, look at how much gold I just got. I just cleared that wave, and I got what, like 100 gold, 150 gold, something like that. If I buy 1 ward and it gets me 1 extra wave, that's hyper valuable. That value is ridiculous. That is why you are warding. If you can't process that and how valuable that becomes for you, then there's a problem, because it's just basic math. I would have lost all this gold. Look, I would have lost all this gold, right? 25, 17, 25, 18, 18, 12, right? I would have lost all that gold if I got ganked. So I buy a ward, so I can't get ganked. I gain all that gold, and if the other idiot ADC decides to not ward, he dies, and I get the lead instead of him getting the lead. That's massive, and it's as easy as dropping a ward there, and as easy as dropping a ward here. Notice, none of these wards are super defensive. I'm not warding right here, because if I'm warding right here, and I'm playing along this line, if the second a jungler hits here, if he blinks onto me, and then he dashes, I'm dead, right? So if I'm the jungler, and I know you're warding, I see, because you can see when the enemy's buying wards, right? Like we can press tab, we can see when he has a ward, that means, oh, he's gonna drop a ward. So if you're playing up and I see you and I blink, so I blink and I 3 you, I'm on top of you already, right? And then say you dash away, if I have any other ranged ability, boom, you're dead. You're not getting away from that. And if the ADC listens and starts to fight with you, you're more than likely gonna play up even more, because you're gonna want to trade into that fight. So I become very gankable by playing the game as an ADC, by only warding in these super, super, almost worthless wards. Like these wards to me are fairly worthless. I do not like these at all. They're more for helping you 1v1 the ADC if he's pathing in to pull these harpies. It's very rare that you need that ward at all, because you have that vision and you have that information just by being in the lane. So ward in this general area, boom, right here. And then same thing on this side. Ward in this general area, boom. It will cover everything you need. It is that simple as an ADC. We'll cover it up one more time with the blown up map. As an ADC, you will ward here and you will ward here. Look at how easy that is. That also helps you with gold vision. If the enemy starts trying to pull a gold fury or starts looking at objectives early, say they play something like an Arachne or something where they want to do stuff early, you have vision of this to know if they're pathing in to cut you off to keep you from rotating in. And you have vision of this to see if they're pulling right to here. It gives you a lot of map control just by dropping these 2 basic wards. So much map control. You knowing these warding spots makes the game easy mode. Literally, this will make the game easy mode for you. And this is for all the roles. It literally makes the game super, super easy just by doing these things. So I hope this warding guide helps you. I hope you guys take these things into consideration, and it's not a lot of information to take in my opinion. For every role, it's got a couple of warding spots. You guys can pop up these maps and boom, you have all the information there. You can skim through this video. You got this video running, play ADC. You just skip to the ADC part, skip to the part where I ping on the map, boom, you're good to go. All the information is there for you guys, and I really do hope it helps a bit and kind of just eliminates any of the confusion or anxiety or whatever's created, because it's not very difficult. It's actually super, super easy and not that complicated. So that's the warding guide. Hope you guys liked it. Please hit the like button if you did. Hopefully we can get one of these videos like 2K likes and see if it'll blow up. That'd be dope. Appreciate you all. Thank you for subscribing to the channel. If you're not subscribed, hit the button. It takes -1 seconds. You're kind of trolling if you haven't. And I will see you all in the video later tomorrow, the next day, the next day, the next day, and the next day.